Hello there, this is Kelly Hamilton, and although I say my name for everybody to know, this really is just a video message, a video card, a bit of love just to my mom and her husband Denny. So I'm going to go ahead and show you my special biscuit recipe. Recently, Mom and Denny had visited us during the fall to watch Jacob and Lucas and Nathan and Ray Kelly do their various sports, and when they were here, they enjoyed some biscuits. Now, I have to tell you a little bit about these biscuits. I've been on a quest to make the perfect biscuit. I was watching a TV show, and I saw these biscuits. They were like 3 inches high. I got very excited about them, and I set out on a quest to figure out how to make a 3-inch biscuit. Well, I remember my Granny Heatherly, making biscuits years ago, and they were good. They weren't 3 inches high, but it left me with this yearning, desire to go back to that time when I would enjoy one of her biscuits. So I started making these biscuits. I will tell you the recipe that I'm about to show you has been tried by error on many different occasions, and my kids have tasted some really delicious biscuits, ones I'm going to share with you now, and my kids have tasted some biscuits that, well, quite frankly, weren't that tasty, and they said, "Dad, these need to go in the trash." So I'm going to show you the fruits of all my trial and error. Let's go ahead and begin. I'm going ahead and wash my hands, and we're all ready. We're going to start with some flour. Now, you can use any kind of flour that you want. What I have found is that the self-rising, all-purpose flour, any brand almost, has been very good. I enjoy the King Arthur brand. I've tried White Lily, very, very good stuff, but White Lily is harder to find up here in the northern states. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add in our flour. As we add in our flour, we're going to do 2 cups. Now, the problem is that sometimes people put 2 cups of flour together, and when they do, they pack the flour too tightly. You have to let the flour be flour. You have to let it be fluffy. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in our 2 cups of flour. If you don't pour it out of the bag, I have found that it then is best to go ahead and spoon it out of the bag. We're going to go ahead and add our flour. After we add our flour, we next begin adding in our other ingredients. Some people don't know to do this, but they add in a tablespoon of sugar. And then we're going to go with baking powder. Baking powder is exceptionally important here. One of the keys that I have found is the first 5 or 10 recipes I made, I had old baking powder. Old stuff, still good for cookies, not good enough for biscuits. You have to have recent baking powder. And we're going to add a full tablespoon of baking powder. Then we're going to move on to our baking soda. Many recipes will not combine baking soda and baking powder. I have found that here in Central Ohio, that is the best way to go. We're going to add in, we're going to add in 1 full teaspoon of baking soda. Now that we have our baking soda added, here's the special ingredient. It's an ingredient that I stumbled upon for taste. Some of you like snickerdoodle cookies. I'm not a fan of snickerdoodle cookies. However, I have come to discover that the secret for good biscuits is to add in a tablespoon. Or, because my tablespoon measurement does not fit into my can, I use 3 teaspoons. 1, 2, 3. 3 teaspoons of cream of tartar. Now, one of the important parts is that you have to mix it up. Take your whisker, go ahead and mix those dry ingredients up. If you go ahead and you add in your liquid or your soft ingredients, what I have found is that the mixture doesn't come to a full combination. Now that you've got it mixed up, what we want to do is we want to add in butter. Now, some of you might add in Crisco shortening. I've tried it. Some of you may even have tried, as I did, coconut oil. I have found that the best butter to use is salted butter. It takes care of the salt ingredient that is already needed. Now, here's the key. Everybody hear that? That's frozen solid. You need to use frozen butter. And some of you say, well, dear tell, how am I going to combine frozen butter into these dry ingredients? Well, I'm about to show you. As we get our cheese grater, And we're going to take our frozen butter and our cheese grater and we're going to shred our butter. Shred, shred, shred. Now this takes a couple of moments. My fingers are actually cold right now. And as my fingers are cold, sometimes I have to switch. And I switch again every once in a while. And it is difficult to grind it up. But what you'll find is that it provides a flaky texture to the biscuit. And as I continue here to shred, 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 if I had a food processor, I actually would try to shred my butter in the food processor. Perhaps though the heat may be too much, I have found that this particular cheese grater is effective. Now when you get down to the nub, be careful with your fingers. I've had to tell my kids, you just don't want to rake your knuckles across there because you don't want to hurt yourself. Now you've got all this butter. And the butter consistency, and I like to get every last bit of that butter that I have paid for, and I get it, and it looks like shredded cheese. The shredded cheese consistency looks about like that. It's actually quite nice looking. Then, some people use buttermilk, some people use 2% whole. I have found that whatever milk I have in the refrigerator, because I've tried them all of them work equally well. I go ahead and now I begin to combine my dry ingredients along with my butter and the milk. As I combine these together, and it takes a few moments here because it starts to get stiff, and as it's getting stiff it's harder to move, but you just keep working it. You can mash it, you can cut it, and you're trying to combine all of those dry ingredients with your liquid. Now I typically like to wait until I've got it mixed up fairly well, about like that, and then I will go hands-on. I don't want to use the hands too much because I don't want to compress my dough. Now, very importantly, you're going to see that I like to go ahead and add a little bit of butter. Very interestingly, I have used flour, I have used cornmeal as part of my base here upon which to give my final work of my flour. I will tell you, I really like the cornmeal. And when Mom and Denny, when you were here, I did both cornmeal and non-cornmeal. In this situation, I'm not going to use cornmeal. I'm only going to use the flour. I go ahead and I press it out to about 1 inch in consistency. If you can make sure that we see that there, that's about 1 inch tall. And then what I like to do is I like to take my dough knife and I want to cut it. I want to fold the dough on top of the other. And then I'm going to start the process again. I don't want to mash too hard. I don't want to work it too much. I like to mash it down, compress it. I don't even like to use the word compress. Let's just say work the dough down to about 1 inch level. Then I'm going to cut it again. And when I cut it again this time, I have found that for the biscuits that I make here in this altitude, is that folding it 3 times is usually the right number. I've gone as many as 6 and 8 times, and I noticed that my biscuits then aren't quite as flaky. So here I've got my dough laid out. And as I get my dough laid out, then all of a sudden I bring my pan over, and as I bring my pan over, I get my round biscuit cutting tool. Looks about like this. Hello, Lucas. It is dough. It's biscuit dough. Oh, and you can see a lot of my kids like to eat the biscuit dough as I am making it. I take my round biscuit cutter, and as I go ahead and I just press it down, I have done it both ways. I've pressed straight down and then moved it out so that I don't create any kind of force around the side of the biscuit. I've also done it this way, where I push my biscuit cutter down, I give it a twist to separate it from the rest of the dough, and I have found that there is a very negligible difference in the edges with each process. You'll notice that I've obtained just a regular cookie sheet, and in fact, Mom, I think this is the one that you bought Tracy and I many years ago. It is a Wilton, and we find that it is the absolute favorite. So much so, we went and bought another one. I do not butter or otherwise flour the pan. Why? You saw the butter that was in here. That butter is sufficient to handle this particular project. So we go ahead and we get the rest of our biscuits here made. And you'll see that I like to get full biscuits. I'll go ahead and put my dough back together. And the reason I don't only do 3 presses or 3 workings of the dough the first time is because that when I come back to work the dough for the second time, what you'll see is that it's getting worked again. I want that butter to be flaky. Well, here we are. We're already at our 5th biscuit. And what I do when I get down to these other pieces, 2 ways you can do it. You can go ahead and press it out again and get another round one, which I am going to do this go around. And there's a round one. Now, when I get down to the scraps, I find that my kids find it's quite tasty to see who gets the misshapen, lumpy dough that eventually turns into a delicious biscuit. So I just went ahead and hand form that one, and I'll hand form this one. And now, in how many minutes was that? Not very many. I now have 8 biscuits ready to go in. Let's go ahead and put these in to the oven, and let's see how the other ones that I've already made turned out. We come over here. The oven is already set at 400 degrees. I simply go ahead, pop them in, and it's 400 degrees for 15 minutes. Let's see how the other ones have come out. Oh, wait till you see these. A little hot there. Can't quite grab it. Again, it was 400 degrees. I go ahead and I pull these out. I want you to get a look at these. These are what I call my mile-high biscuits. And as you hold this pan, you can see that compared to my finger, these are pretty high. I wonder if the kids will smell any of these biscuits as they are waiting around here today. We're going to go ahead and just lay those biscuits there. Here are the 2 that I made previously, the round ones, that were hand formed. Look at those. Those are big biscuits. And these here, well, you can see that this one here was so big it began to topple over. And so these are the biscuits that I get to enjoy. And in fact, my kids lately have said, Dad, Sundays are better when you make biscuits after church. So these are what the biscuits look like. You can make them all different ways. Let me go ahead and get a little taste of this. It's got just the right texture on the bottom. It's firm, a bit crunchy, but look right here at this goodness. Look how that biscuit just separates. Oh, flaky, fluffy, and tasty. I'm surprised any of the kids haven't come running in yet, but hopefully they will. Oh,
hey Dad, are you making biscuits?
you know I was. You stole some batter earlier. Would you like one now?
Sure.
Let's go ahead and eat a biscuit here for a moment. You get first choice. It's always an exciting adventure to see who's going to get first choice of our biscuits whenever we make them. We're on a typical rotating basis. You get first choice? Go ahead. Pick it. Why don't you go ahead and bless the food?
Your only Father, Lord, we thank you for these biscuits, Lord, and sing your identity. So we love you.
Amen. Well, here's what we do then. Sometimes the kids say, should I put butter on my biscuit? They've actually come to appreciate that now they don't need to put any butter on the biscuit unless they just want extra butter, because you saw the amount of butter that I have in there. You want any jelly? How are you going to eat it this time?
Plain.
Why don't you stand right here so that Dan and Palma can see you. How you going to eat it? Just plain? Well, let me tell you, I like to eat mine typically with honey. I like, if I had eggs, I would go ahead and open up my biscuit. Watch this. Oh, yeah. I open up my biscuit, and I like to lather on either some jelly or some honey. And then, typically, I'll make eggs in the morning. And when I make the eggs with this, I like a little bit of hot sauce on top of my eggs. I put the eggs on top of my jelly biscuit, and then I go ahead. What do you think? Is that a thumbs up? Making biscuits. That was delicious. Making biscuits. I will tell you that making biscuits, part of the joy is the simple goodness that it provides. The comfort that the experience gives me. I think back to some of my own biscuit experiences, and of course I already told you about Granny. When Granny would make biscuits, it was a celebration of being able to sit down together. When Mom and Denny most recently joined us, we just sat and we talked there at the dinner table. And we do that with our own family. Biscuits provide that simple goodness, that wholesome nature of being able to sit around and talk and share a meal together. I hope you've enjoyed this recipe. I'll go ahead and make certain that I've written it down so you can enjoy it. But you can see these Mile High biscuits, they provide not only a lot of joy, a lot of comfort, there's a great deal of love that can be shared around a biscuit. And that's what I'm most grateful for. Mom, Denny, thank you for the love that you share with us. It talks about in the Bible, in the book of Exodus, we're supposed to honor our parents. Sometimes I'm good at that, and other times I'm still wanting to do better. I hope that sharing my biscuit recipe with you is